work finding the best people for you. See for yourself. Experience the ease, efficiency, and power of ZipRecruiter for free. Just go to ziprecruiter.com/free. That's ziprecruiter.com/free. ziprecruiter.com/free.
The Good Neighbor Network, FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna, and online at WGNSradio.com. This is the Roundtable. A look at the news, views, politics, and people that are shaping Rutherford County.
Welcome into the Roundtable on this Wednesday. Chip Walters here from Exit Realty, Bob Lamb and Associates. And always a lot of fun on this Wednesday right after the NCAA tournament brackets have come out for both the men and women, and always tried to put together an all-star crew to help you win your office bracket challenge and or whatever bracket challenge you might be in, because most of them, your brackets have to be in by either late tonight or tomorrow before the round of 64 gets underway. And to make some introductions, just an old pal, and he is known as a former Blue Raider assistant coach. He was the point guard on the 1974 NC State Wolfpack basketball team that just celebrated their 50th anniversary, and most notably the former head coach of the Raleigh Bullfrogs of the Global Basketball Association. That would be Monty Tao. Monty, how you doing, my man?
Real good, and it's great to see you. By the way, I've never won one of these brackets, so nobody should pay attention to anything that I'm saying. Believe me.
Well, you know, I saw on CBS the other night, they said the more you know, the less chance you have of winning one of these. So that's why so who knows? Next up, college basketball analyst and out of the ATL down in the 404, Tim Scarborough. Timmy, how are you doing, my man? It was great seeing you last week.
Yeah, man, always good to see you, Chip. I love going to Murfreesboro, but we actually met up in Huntsville, Alabama this year for the Conference USA tournament, a league I've been covering for Stadium TV for the last 10 years. Stadium didn't do any live games this year, so I didn't get to do any Conference USA games, but I'm an alumnus of Liberty, and Liberty's in the conference now, so I had to come and support the Flames. They flamed out pretty quickly, but your boys in Murfreesboro did a pretty good job of playing themselves into the semifinal, but yeah, it was good to see you.
Yeah, and absolutely caught a Western Kentucky team that caught fire at the right time, and we'll talk about them as we go along. Of course, we'll hit the women's bracket a little bit toward the end of the show and talk about Rick Insel's Lady Raiders, who are just an absolute machine right now and have won 19 in a row against conference competition. And rounding out the panel today on the round table is who I think is one of the most insightful college basketball guys in the Nashville market. That is Steve Lehman from News Channel 5, and he is also the voice of the Belmont Bruins. And Steve Areno, how are you today?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
Doing good. Are you going to be hitting the road covering anybody?
Yep, I'm going to be on the road here fairly shortly to head off to Charlotte for the weekend and be with the Vols. So we'll see how long that lasts with Tennessee in the postseason, but I kind of like their draw. I think they've got a shot to do something this year.
Yeah, I think they do too, and he certainly has all the pieces. Okay, first of all, the first four started last night and will continue tonight up in Dayton. And, Monty, I think we were part of it in 2013 and faced St. Mary's up there. It is an unbelievable experience that happens and is over before you ever know what is going on. You're already done and out of there, whether you've won or lost. But what in the name of John Paul Jones went on with Virginia last night?
Well, they didn't play very well. That's for sure.
That's why we call you an expert.
But that turnaround from playing in the conference tournament to turning around and having to travel on Monday and then play on Tuesday and trying to get information about your opponent, just a real speed up process. And, you go in there and you hope you play good and you really don't know what you're up against. I know when we went in there, We were a really good basketball team, and we were beaten by a really good basketball team in St. Mary's. So it was a wonderful event, and Dayton always does a great job with that.
Yeah, Tim, Virginia's pack line defense is always so good, but they've got to start finding some offense.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. I've been around that program a lot. I used to live in Virginia before I moved to Atlanta. Richie McKay, who's the head coach at Liberty, was an assistant with Tony Bennett for many years. So I got to know Tony a little bit, and I've covered the ACC. And one thing I've seen about that team is they make scoring look very difficult sometimes. And last night, 14 points in the first half. But the reality is, Chip, to me, Virginia didn't belong in the NCAA tournament. And they told us that last night because they were the number 54 team in terms of net ranking. Virginia was rewarded for who they live by. They live in the ACC conference, and because of that, they got into the NCAA tournament. They didn't deserve to be there, and I cheer for Virginia. I love Tony Bennett, and I like the Cavaliers, but they didn't belong in the tournament. And if I'm Indiana State and I'm watching that game and we had a 29 net, and we're sitting at home. And it's like that team got to be in the NCAA tournament over us. Who are we kidding, man? But it was ugly. But having said that, Colorado State is good enough to get to the Sweet 16 next week. That is a really good basketball team. The Mountain West, a very underrated conference, a conference I cover. I'm just telling you, there's a whole lot of talent there. It's a really good coaching. Nico Medved, the head coach of Colorado State, former head coach of Drake when they were doing well a few years ago. They're back in the tournament this year. But man, really good coach, and he'll have his team prepared on Thursday as well.
Steve, you saw the trees a couple of times this year. They seem deserving. St. John's seemed deserving. In your opinion, who got jobbed?
Well, I promise you that Indiana State would have scored more than 14 points in the first half. I can guarantee you that. It was a shame we didn't get Larry Nerd or Harry Bird or whatever nickname you want to give to Robbie Avila, because he's a superstar and would have been totally beloved in this tournament. But I'm with Tim on this one. I think the biggest thing I saw last night was the indictment that I had from Sunday on this committee and the job they did. And frankly, Virginia's the only team I have a real beef about their inclusion, but they just missed on kind of the landscape of where people belong. Beyond the net ranking, Virginia was 73 in KenPom. 73. That should not happen at a power conference school if you expect to be an NCAA tournament team. They just weren't good enough to be in the NCAA tournament, but yet somehow they got the inclusion. And then Tim talks about the Mountain West. It's not just Colorado State. We're going to see Boise State somehow in a first four game tonight in Dayton. And you've got the rest of that conference. Utah State won a 6-bid league. They got an 8 seed. To me, when you look at this bracket, the top 4 seeds are fairly well seeded, except for I thought Iowa State should have been a 1. The bottom 4 seeds are fairly well seeded. But you go between 5 or 6 and 11 and 12, and basically there's not a whole lot of difference between any of those teams, but they miss seed lines by a lot. There's a bunch of Mountain West teams that should be 5 or 6s and instead got 10s and 11s. There's some Big Ten schools that probably should be 10s or 11s that got 8s, and same thing with the SEC. And so I think especially in the middle of the bracket, those 6-11, 7-10, 8-9, all that stuff. I think you could see a lot of topsy-turvy results here over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of evenness in that middle part of the bracket for sure. Well, let's kind of jump into it a little bit. And when you start with the upper left portion of the bracket in the East region, all of a sudden, okay, here's UConn, FAU, and San Diego State. What do they have in common? All in the Final Four last year, and they're all in the same region. And is it the UConn Invitational, guys?
You know, for me, UConn is clearly the best team in the nation. But as we all know, to win a championship, you don't have to be just good. You have to be fortunate. And so there's no guarantees that UConn is going to win the national championship. But having said that, I feel like they have a nice path, despite the fact that some of those teams were in the Final Four last year. The FAU team, a team I cover, former Conference USA team, that is a really good team that returned nearly everybody from a year ago. People expect them to do what they did last year. They are not. They are going to run into a UConn team that is going to know how to play them. Vlad Golden, their 7-foot center, who dominates, will not dominate against a UConn team because they have the size and the athletic ability. I expect FAU to be an early exit. Now, I'll say this. You call the UConn Invitational, but that target on your back, UConn kind of bubbled up last year. Now they're the hunted team. So it's a little bit more difficult when people are going to give you their best. Monty knows that as a guy who won a national championship. The teams that you're expected to beat, they play you harder than the teams that people should give you a challenge.
Those teams are always going to give people like Connecticut their best shot. That's for sure. I agree with everything you said. Connecticut looks like the best team in the country to me. They did last year. They do again this year. A one-game out tournament, like you said, anything can happen. Yep. Certainly, Iowa State is a team that could win it all as well. So good for all those teams in that side of the bracket. But I Chip saying the Connecticut Invitational, that's kind of what it looks like to me.
I'll tell you, Steve, it looks like a potential UConn-Auburn game in the Sweet 16, and also and I've got in the bottom part of that, I've got Illinois and Drake. I may be completely off base on that, but to me it looks like that could be that's the way that could shape up.
Well, first off, Drake, Iowa State in Omaha on Saturday afternoon. That's could be a really wild atmosphere.
And going to be a tough ticket for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So that could just be fun. I hope we see it. I come at it a little bit differently. I thought a week ago, before ever seeing the bracket, based off of what UConn did in the regular season and then in the Big East tournament, I thought there isn't going to be a scenario where I won't pick UConn to win the national championship because I just think they're that good, even though it's so hard to repeat. And then I see this bracket, and the committee did them no favors. This is the #1 overall seed. They have the Big 12 tournament champ, Iowa State, who I think by resume should have been the 4th #1 over North Carolina. They have the Big 10 tournament champ, Illinois, who's won 7 of 8. 6 of those are quad 1 wins away from home. Terrence Shannon Jr. just scored 102 points in 3 games in the Big 10 tournament. There's no one in the country on the perimeter playing better than he is right now. Auburn, who is the 4 seed in the region by KenPom, is the 4th best team in the country analytically. San Diego State was in the national championship game last year. BYU, who is the 6th seed, is the 17th overall seed in the tournament but got moved down because they can't play on Sunday. So that's 5 of the top 17 or 6 of the top 17 teams in the country right there. And then you still have FAU, who was in the Final Four and returns everybody from last year. To me, the East is by far the most loaded region in the bracket. The only benefit UConn gets is they get to play in Brooklyn and Boston, which will be home games for them. I still think they're the best team, so I still think they're getting to Phoenix. But if you tell me they lose to Auburn in the Sweet 16 or lose to Illinois or Iowa State in the Elite Eight, I wouldn't be shocked because those teams are certainly good enough to give them a game.
Yep, and we haven't even addressed any potential first-round upsets. And, right now, I saw UAB over the weekend who, they were kind of dysfunctional when they came to Murfreesboro back in late November, but I mean, Andy Kennedy's got that group playing really well. They won the American tournament, and it's not going to shock me if they open up and beat San Diego State.
Not at all. I mean, Andy Kennedy has one of the more talented teams in the country. He's a really good recruiter, and I watched them play Memphis at Memphis and score 61 points in the first half. They lost that game by 15 points because Memphis came out in the second half and just dominated. But that first half of basketball, I think when they play together, they're really, really good. The second half, because they had the lead, they started taking hero shots and kind of messing around, and they let Memphis back in the game. That's the issue with Andy Kennedy's group to me. Good enough to win, but good enough to beat themselves. So I don't have them going far. But, yeah, as Steve was saying, that bracket is really tough. If UAB is a 12, and we're saying, man, they're good enough to beat anybody on a given night. I mean, and then all the other things Steve just underscored. I also concur that UConn, despite that path, is good enough to get to that national championship game.
Yep. One other that's kind of semi-local interest in there, you've got Illinois has been victim of an OVC team before in the tournament, and they've got Morehead State who has a very special player. So that, that could be the one if you're looking for, that big, upset, that could be the one to pick.
Chip, you realize I'm an Illinois guy, right?
I know you are.
Yeah, no chance. I'll do the Dickie V thing and stand on my head if Morehead State wins this one. But Illinois does everything that Morehead State does, only they do it like 7 times better.
Right.
I think when you're looking for a matchup like that you're trying to pick the upset, you got to find something like a team's going to slow it down. They're going to shoot 43s. You hope they get hot. Morehead State has a great guard in Drew Thelwell. He's terrific. They're going to put Terrence Shannon on him, and he's going to be suffocated. Riley Minix is a 20-10 guy. Illinois got one of the best out-on-the-floor post defenders in the country in Coleman Hawkins. I don't think it's a good matchup for Morehead State. I love the OVC. I hope they acquit themselves well. But to me, that bracket is not the bracket to pick your upsets. The East, because it is so top-heavy, I think even these teams that are good on the bottom half, they're going to run into teams that are just hard to beat in rounds 1 and 2. And so I think you're going to see a lot of chalk moving on in the East region. If you're looking for those 12s and those 13s, I'd look to the other 3 regions.
All right, we're going to talk about those in a minute, but right now it looks like UConn is the consensus pick to come out of the East. We're going to take a break on the roundtable. We'll hit the West and South regions coming up in our next segment right here on WGNS.
Hey fellas, if you've been feeling tired and grumpy and have noticed a lack of motivation and drive, you may have low T. Low testosterone levels can cause weight gain, loss of muscle mass, and so much more. I recommend Low T Center, which is where I get my levels tested. They make it quick and easy to get your levels checked, and it's only $25. And with their on-site lab, you'll get your results back in about 25 minutes. Most insurance is accepted for treatment. Go to lowtcenter.com now to book your appointment online. Low T Center, reinventing men's healthcare.
Tire World's annual at-cost tire sale is finally here. For 1 week only, all passenger and light truck tire brands will be sold at cost, plus an additional 20% off the installation. Want more? Okay. Get up to another $100 back by double dipping with manufacturer rebates. The sale is short, but the savings are huge. That's because Tire World doesn't put discount in its name, it puts the discount in your pocket.
At Tire World, we keep your family rolling.
When the unexpected happens, fire, water, or storm damage, Farrah Construction can help. Farrah Construction is also there to help when a car slams through the wall, and that seems to happen more often these days. I'm Ron Hall. Let our family at Farrah Construction help you. Call Farrah Construction and we'll board up, put down tarps, secure your home or business until the insurance coverage is approved. I'm Ron Hall. Shop local. Let our family business help you. Farrah Construction Company.
Adam's Place has been a wonderful place. I'm Greg Shannon. I ride a bike, so I keep my bike on the patio. It's easy to get in and out, and water aerobics, like I said, and then they have stretch and balance to help you, because us old people, we fall a lot. So she's trying to teach us how to keep from falling and to, protect yourself and be careful and be smart,
I'm Terry Deal. Call me about Adam's Place. Phone 615-904-9111. Memorial Boulevard, across from Walmart.
This is Good Neighbor Events with Bart Walker. Brought to you by the law offices of John Day and AmeriCare Pest Control.
This is a paid legal ad.
When a family member is lost as a result of someone else's negligence, the grief can be unbearable. It also leaves you with a lot of questions like, how did this happen? Who's responsible? And is my family going to be okay? That's a lot to go through, but with the law offices of John Day on your side, you don't have to go through any of it alone. We understand what you're going through, and we have the experience to get the answers, justice, and compensation your family deserves. Call the law offices of John Day.
Let's check those WGNS Good Neighbor events. The second annual Positive Aging Conference will be at MTSU's Miller Education Center. That's over on East Bell Street on Friday, April the 5th. It's open to MTSU faculty, students, community providers, and adults age 60 plus. It's a day of upbeat speeches and conversations about growing older in America. The registration is open now. Contact Dr. Deborah Lee at MTSU. That's 615-904-8059. The Parkinson Support Group meets at 10 o'clock on the first and third Friday of each month over at the St. Clair Street Senior Center. Again, that's at 10 o'clock the first and third Friday mornings of each month, and it's free. Don't throw away Old Glory. Bring your tattered American flag to WGNS. And let the girls from BSA Troop 2019 at Trinity United Methodist Church retire it with dignity. Plus, we also recycle Bibles. Those are WGNS Good Neighbor events.
Rutherford weather.
Skies become mostly sunny here this afternoon with a high around 70 degrees. Northwest winds at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Tonight, mostly clear, low near 37. I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki on News Radio WGNS.
Currently, it's 52.
WGNS is powered by Middle Tennessee Electric. MTE has a solar expert and energy services supervisor to help its members understand if solar is right for them and help members avoid possible scams from outside parties. Learn more at mte.com/prosolar.
This is the Roundtable from News Radio WGNS on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna, and worldwide at WGNSradio.com.
Busting brackets on this Wednesday on the Roundtable. Chip Walters with you. Steve Lehman of News Channel 5, Tim Scarborough, television analyst, and Monty Tao, bon vivant and man about town, joining us today. And we gave you the Yukon pick out of the East region, showing our expertise there. And coming out of the West region, maybe, as Steve mentioned, chance for some upsets to start here. Monty, I'll start with you because the number one seed in the West region is your former nemesis, the North Carolina Tar Heels. And what about that group? They've been, they ran into a buzzsaw into your Wolfpack, but is Carolina strong enough to come out of that region?
They're definitely strong enough. They're definitely well coached, and they definitely can get it done. It really hurts them to say all those things, but they're true. The one that kind of has stood out to me is why they are where they are is Alabama. I've seen them play 2 or 3 times this year right here in Gainesville 3 weeks ago, and I've seen what Florida did to Alabama, so I think they're a little bit higher seeded than they should be. I do like Mississippi State. I think they get after you defensively. I haven't seen much of Baylor. But North Carolina definitely tournament time, and the talent rises to the top. And I'm not sure they deserve a number 1 seed. They got it, but Iowa State, I think, probably, like everybody, I think agrees, maybe deserve that number 1 seed. But I look for North Carolina to advance right on through that bracket.
Steve, is the most intriguing first-round game the MSUs against each other? Mississippi State.
I'm not sure
and,
if it's
and
the
Michigan
most
State.
intriguing first-round game, but it's certainly intriguing, Chip, because as I said, I wouldn't pick many upsets in the East region. I look at this bracket, and I'm not kidding. From the 3-14 game on through the middle, I think anything could happen. Baylor's a really good team. Colgate's in its 5th consecutive NCAA tournament. So everybody on that team has significant NCAA tournament experience. I think Alabama's the hardest team to pick in the bracket because they're tremendous offensively. They're 3rd in the country by the analytics, but they take so many threes that they're either going to bomb you out of the gym or they're going to have an off shooting day. It's really hard for me to pick them to win 6 in a row, but they could beat anybody on a given day. And so they could lose to Charleston if they go 7 of 38 from 3, or they could beat them by 45 and easily move into the Sweet 16 or Elite 8. It's just, they're a really difficult team to me. But to your point on Mississippi State, Michigan State, I think that's going to be a great game. And I also think whoever wins has a really decent shot against North Carolina on Saturday, because Mississippi State has size with Tolu Smith and those guys inside and good guard play, Josh Hubbard and others. Michigan State has tremendous guard play. And that's been what has given North Carolina fits this year. When you can attack them off the bounce with your guards, both those teams have it, and they have the physicality to give them problems. If you're looking for one seed that you want to take out, and I'm not saying that's the smartest thing when you're doing brackets, but if you're looking for one you want to take out early, to me, North Carolina is the most vulnerable in that game against whoever wins.
I personally don't have them making it to the region finals, but I've got Arizona coming out of the bottom, Timmy, and I think St. Mary's is going to make some noise in the top half of that bracket.
Listen, Steve's on. I mean, but I got to tell you, the Alabama team, Monty, they are better than what they played when you saw them in person versus Florida. And, those conference games, as you know, on the road, you're going to lay an egg or two from time to time because they know how you play and they can take your strengths from you. In addition to Alabama being a three-point shooting team, though, they're also very, very long. I did a game with them. They played Liberty, and I did a game in Birmingham. And I watched that game, and then Liberty's one of the smaller teams. In fact, they're the smallest team in the country. But Alabama, they're so long. They're 6'9" wings. They're 7-foot forwards. They're 7-foot centers. And then Sears is one of the best guards in the country. When he gets that ball in his hands, he can do a lot with it. So I have Alabama going far. Arizona has burned me time and time and time again. But guess what? I'm going with the Wildcats again. I don't know why. Because they have pros on their team. Ballo, the 7-foot center, is just a terrific player. But they can lose in the first or second round like they do almost every year. But for some reason, I've decided to go with them. But having said that, Dayton, Deron Holmes, one of the better players in the country. They had a 7 seed, the Atlantic 10 regular season champs. A very difficult league to win. But they played Nevada, who's another really good Mountain West team. So they got a bad draw. But the winner of that Dayton-Nevada team game could certainly beat Arizona in the second round. But having said that, I got Arizona going very far, all the way to the Final Four. I don't have Carolina coming out of that region at all. But as Steve mentioned, St. Mary's really good team. But Grand Canyon's really good.
Yeah,
it's a 12-5 matchup that a lot of people are going to pick Grand Canyon to win. So Clemson, solid, but New Mexico with the Jalen House and Mashburn Jr., Richard Pitino. But if you ever met Richard Pitino and met Rick Pitino, you think they're the same person. Those guys are clones. But I got to tell you, New Mexico is another wild card. But I got Baylor going far, too, if they can get by New Mexico in that second round.
All right. Steve and Monty, who do you have coming out of the West?
I've got North Carolina. I liked all the information I was getting, though, because it backs up. I've got North Carolina, Alabama, Baylor, Dayton, and North Carolina and Baylor, and then North Carolina advanced.
Oh, you like Dayton? That's good,
Steve. Who do you have coming out of the West?
So I've got Arizona as well.
Okay.
I tell you what, guys, I saw them in person back in November, and it was kind of like Tim's appreciation for Alabama. I just looked at him and I was like, they've got a 7'2" guy coming off the bench that's the most talented player on the floor. And that's behind Dumar Bauer. And so to me, they just match up great. They've got size on the wings. They've got terrific backcourt play. Kylan Boswell's a little bit of a wild card for them. He hasn't played great as of late, but if he gets back to his early season form, they're just tremendous. To me, this is the year for them. Caleb Love, Keyshawn Johnson have both played in national championship games. So I thought at the time that they were a national title contender, and I'm going to stick with that even 3 months later. But I've got Arizona coming out of the West.
So three Arizonas and one Carolina coming out of the West. As we move to the South region, I've got a real beef in that Houston being a number 1 seed. I get it, but we've all been around mid-major basketball and had any of our teams, had Liberty, had Middle, had Belmont gotten beaten by 30 in their conference tournament finals, the committee would have used that to kick them not only out of a seed, they would have kicked them out of the tournament. And here's Houston. They have no penalty whatsoever. They got beat by 30, and they're still a number 1 seed.
The decision was made before that game, though.
Yeah.
That's the reality of it. They were already penciled in as the number 1 seed. And just like what you're saying, one game you penalize the mid-majors, I think it's unfair to penalize Houston for one game as well. So you got to look at the totality of the resume. Kelvin Sampson is one of the best coaches in the entire nation. He'll have his team ready. I don't know what they were doing on Sunday, because that was just awful to watch. That was Virginia-like. But at the same time, it's almost good for you when you have that kind of whipping right before the tournament. It can refocus your group. And when you get your group refocused, man, that tends to pay dividends in the tournament. I think some of these Power Fives, it doesn't bode well when they win their conference championship, because you've played your tournament right there, and then a few days later you got to turn around and turn it all back up and start from scratch and try to work your way to the top, and it's really hard to do. So it's almost an advantage to get knocked out a little early, and certainly not get all the way to the championship game like Houston did, then lay the egg. But having said that, I like that Houston team.
Yep, one of the popular upsets is the in the 12-5 game here, Steve and Monty. Everybody is jumping on James Madison. They've won 31 games, and they didn't do that by accident.
Yeah, that's a tremendous team with Terrence Edwards. I like them to beat Wisconsin because they attack the rim, and the Badgers, as good as they are and as well as they're playing, do not have big guys that can deter you at the rim. So I like James Madison to win that game. Also, this isn't going to make anybody happy in the Borough necessarily, Chip.
Yep.
But if you're looking for a real long shot, we've seen a few more 15s, a few more 16 upsets.
I know where you're going.
Western Kentucky against Marquette. I love Marquette, but how healthy is Tyler Kolek? Because he hasn't played the last few weeks. They say he's going to play with an oblique strain. But the last time I checked in with them, they said it felt like he was getting stabbed. And that's why he wasn't playing last week. So if you tell me he's gone from there to 100% by this week, I may change my mind and go back to Marquette. But I have a feeling you're getting something less than a 100% Tyler Kolek this week. And if that's the case, I think Western Kentucky could be hot enough to pull the biggest surprise of the tournament. I also think you look at Colorado. I think if they win tonight, they've got 3 NBA guys on their team. They're the type of first 4 team that could come out of Dayton and make a run into the second weekend of the tournament. And I think NC State, who just won the ACC tournament, might be hot enough to pull off a couple of surprises. But to me, the team to watch in this bracket is Kentucky.
Yep.
The Wildcats got a gift with their draw. They do everything that Oakland can't, as much as I love Greg Kampe. I don't think either Texas Tech or NC State matches up with them well. We just talked about Marquette maybe being a little banged up and shorthanded. And so to me, that's a gift to get Kentucky potentially all the way to the Elite Eight. And then you're talking about one game. I have it against Houston, and Houston's tremendous defensively. But the Wildcats are going to jack up 43s. And in a one-game situation, can Reed Shepherd and Rob Dillingham and those guys knock down enough to beat Houston? I think they potentially could. So I have Kentucky going all the way to the Final Four out of this draw.
Monty, what about your Wolfpack, and what do you see out of the South? What intrigues you?
Well, NC State intrigues me. That's just a heart and soul. Plus, they're a good basketball team, and I really like Kevin Keats, and just it was a phenomenal ACC tournament run.
And you talk about getting hot at the right time.
Well, they've got good players too. They got 7 good players and guys that are experienced, and the big kid can really score, and he presents a problem for the defense. DJ Horn scoring a lot of points. The kid that played really well, I thought, in the ACC tournament was Mike O'Connell, the Stanford transfer. He gives them a real experienced point guard and a real good leader out there. But I'm gonna make you happy, Chip. I got Texas A&M beating Houston, so that we'll get rid of Houston. Hopefully, Buzz will take care of them, I think. And watch out for Florida. They lost their big kid to a tragic, leg injury, and it's going to affect their performance. But they've got a really good basketball team. I've got them matched up against NC State against Texas A&M, and then NC State going on to the Final Four.
Of course you have NC State going on to the Final Four.
Whoa. How can I not? If I don't pick them, I'll never be able to go back to Rob.
That's right. And David Thompson and Tom Burleson would be they would have a contract out on you.
They probably already do.
Guys, to me, I think the semifinal, I think all of us, well, except for Monty, has Kentucky and Houston in the region final. Who do you have in the semifinals, Steve?
I've got Marquette getting there, but Kentucky winning that one.
Okay.
And then on the top half of the bracket, I have Duke winning because I've got them beating James Madison in the second round. So I think Duke will get there too, but I don't think Duke is much of a threat to Houston in the Sweet 16.
Yeah, I always think that, the committee always does some funny little things like they've got Duke against the Dukes of James Madison, and the only other thing they could have done there would have put Duquesne in with in there somehow to make all of that. But the Florida injury, you're right. I think the Florida Marquette, if that does indeed come about, or but Colorado Boise State's going to be interesting tonight to see who comes out of that, and there is something to be said for momentum of a possible first four team coming out.
Yeah, the winner of that Boise Colorado State game, I have going to the Sweet 16 because I think both of those teams can beat Marquette with the injury that they have. And I just, Shaka Smart put it together in 2011 with VCU, but he hasn't really had teams that have performed. And I think Marquette is ranked a little higher than actually. Watching them play, they don't look like a 2 seed in the NCAA tournament to me. They win games, but they're not a dominant team. And with their best player injured, and even if he comes back, he ain't going to be 100%. I feel like they're going to get upset. But I got to go back to the NC State love because Monty, you may not. I know you don't know this, but I coached against you when you were at Asheville, and I was an assistant coach at Liberty. But in addition to that connection, Eddie Bienbach, one's my favorite players. But in addition to that connection, coaches, I should say. But Lorenzo Charles, who hit the dunk in 1983, is actually my first cousin. So wonderful. I'm related to NC. And then in addition to that, Chip Keats is one of my best friends, the head coach of NC State. Having said that, I am not picking NC State to go very far.
All right. There we got it coming out of the South region. We'll take our final break. We will take a look at the Midwest and also dive into the women's tournament just a bit as well because, of course, we've got Lady Raider basketball coming up at Friday at 12:30 against the Louisville Cardinals right here on WGNS. Back with the final segment of the Roundtable right after this. Hi, this is Chip Walters with Exit Realty Bob Lamb & Associates. You might know me as the voice of the Blue Raiders, but I want to be your trusted advisor in real estate. Whether you're buying or selling, it's time to choose Chip. Do you have a growing family and need to upsize? Are you an empty nester now and need to downsize? Are you thinking of selling your current home but just worried you can't find something else? Well, it's time to choose Chip. I'm looking to be your trusted advisor in real estate. I'm Chip Walters with Exit Realty Bob Lamb & Associates.
Finding that missing shin guard, remembering whether it's a home or away game, getting the right kid to the right playing field on the right day. Why are simple things sometimes so complicated? Thankfully, with auto owners, insurance doesn't have to be one of them. We work with independent agents who keep insurance simple so you can worry about more important things, like not being that fan.
Oh, come on, ref!
That's simple human sense.
Rayburn Insurance in Smyrna.
Come see me, Rick Hall, at Rayburn Insurance in downtown Smyrna today.
When severe weather strikes, we break in.
A tornado watch is in effect for Rutherford County.
The most up-to-date weather information.
We'll be here with you on radio and with Rutherford Weather Video Channel.
Rutherford Weather Updates on WGNS. And watch on YouTube and Facebook with Rutherford Weather.
Here at Bud's Tire, we make buying Michelin tires simpler. I'm Allison Mitchell with Bud's Tire Pros. We offer a straightforward approach to service, including nationwide warranties with every purchase. Stop in today to see our full lineup of Michelin and BF Goodrich tires. For whatever you drive, Michelin and BF Goodrich have a tire to fit any need. Bud's Tire Pros, hassle-free, guaranteed. We're located on East Main Street, exactly 3 miles from the town square, 1 mile past Rutherford Boulevard. Visit us online at budstireprostn.com.
This is Kim Dunaway from Sunshine Nutrition Center. You hear me on Monday mornings at 7:20 talking about how to lead a healthier lifestyle. We carry supplements, personal care, and grocery items at both our Murfreesboro and Smyrna locations, family owned and operated since 1989.
As a leader in environmental services, sustainability is deeply integrated into our business model. At Middle Point Landfill, we are environmentalists at heart. We use a cutting-edge technology in combination with our deep experience in recycling and waste services to protect our environment and our neighbors. That's our job, and that's our promise. This is Mike Klassen with Middle Point Landfill. We invite you to learn more about us at middlepointlandfill.com. For public services, we are sustainability in action.
Hi, this is Trevor at Bell Jewelers. If you don't see anything in the showcases, we can custom design something special for your loved one here at Bell Jewelers. If you just inherited some jewelry from your distant relatives and you want to personalize it to you, we can do that here at Bell Jewelers. Our jewelers are so creative here at Bell Jewelers that you can just give them the idea and they'll turn your dream into a reality. Come follow us on TikTok and Instagram to see the inside world of Bell Jewelers. Bell Jewelers, 821 Northwest Broad, across from Toots.
This is the Roundtable from News Radio WGNS on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna, and worldwide at WGNSradio.com.
Welcome back into the Wednesday Roundtable. Hope you're filling out your brackets along with our experts here today. Steve Lehman of News Channel 5, who will be hitting the road with the Tennessee Volunteers going over to Charlotte this weekend. Monty Tao down in Gainesville, Florida, who former Blue Raider assistant coach and national champion with NC State, and Tim Scarborough, television analyst and just a great friend and really just an insider in college basketball, and apparently is related and is friends with everybody that any of us knows after he just told us a moment ago. Now, speaking of going in circles, you guys on you can see right here to my left, Andy Herzer is sitting right here, and Monty knows Andy, and
Yeah,
but we're going to be talking about his first cousin. Yeah, Andy's first cousin is Matt Painter, and so we're getting all the relationships in here, and perfect timing as we get to the Midwest Regional, and here we have Purdue sitting as the number 1 seed, Tennessee is number 2 coming out of the bottom, and you guys can take it. And Tim, I'll start with you right here on this one. Is this an inevitable clash between Tennessee and Purdue in the region final?
Well, much like Arizona, Purdue has severely burned us all over the years. You think about 2 years ago when they had Jaden Ivey, the number 1 player in the country, along with Zach Edey, a younger Zach Edey, but Zach Edey is about to win his 3rd straight MVP of the nation, a Naismith Award. So having said that, I feel like I'm still going to go with the Boilermakers. They have everything it takes. And to me, it's reminiscent of 2018, 2019. Remember 2018, Virginia lost to number 16 team in the first round, 16-1 for the first time ever. The very next year, they won a national championship. Well, guess what? Matt Painter's in that same boat right now, having lost to Fairleigh Dickinson last year, 16-1. They have a chance with the team that they have a chance to do what Virginia did in 2018-19. I'm not picking them to go that far, but I feel like they will save some face this year and go very, very deep into the NCAA tournament.
So I agree.
Yeah,
I have to fill out my bracket live on the air for the first time on Sunday night. We do that every year.
Impressive.
And so I did that. And somehow when I got to the Final Four after picking everything else, that storyline just stuck out to me. So I'm not sure if I'm totally buying into it, but I'm going to stay with it just to be consistent and go with Purdue all the way there. But it's a really interesting bracket in that the top 2 teams, Purdue and Tennessee, have a whole bunch of March demons. Neither of these programs have ever been to the Final Four. Both of these coaches have a ton of disappointments in March. Both of these fan bases are kind of petrified, especially after last weekend. Purdue losing in the semifinals in overtime to Wisconsin, Tennessee getting bombed by Mississippi State on Friday. I joked on the show over the weekend, Tennessee's concern level about March is at level orange, as bright as their uniforms at this point, because of how Friday went. And that's exactly where they are. I do like both of their paths because I think McNeese is going to come out of the bottom half of the top. I think they'll beat Gonzaga. Kansas, we found out yesterday, doesn't have Kevin McCullough. So I think Purdue's going to get McNeese in the Sweet 16, which is going to help them get to the Elite 8. And then the bottom half of the bracket, I've got Tennessee into the Sweet 16 against Creighton. which could be one of the more entertaining games of the entire bracket. That's an incredible offensively talented Blue Jays team with Ryan Kalkbrenner and Baylor Shireman. But I think Tennessee defensively is good enough to slow them down just enough. And with Dalton Knecht, I think they get to Purdue. And then the question is, which one of those teams exercises the demons and is able to finally punch their ticket to the Final Four?
Monty, is Kansas a wounded animal? Because I think there's an opportunity in the second round to have Samford taking on McNeese.
Well, I like McNeese. Kansas isn't going to be a factor from what I can tell. And I'm exactly lined up. Purdue, McNeese State, Creighton, Tennessee, Purdue going against Tennessee, and Purdue coming out of there. Again, my heart is tugged by that Purdue group. I love Matt Painter, but I've got a lot of family up there too, and they wouldn't like me at all. They continue to talk about Purdue and being disappointed every year, but I've got them beating Tennessee and advancing into the Final Four.
Yeah, that's exactly where I am. But I think there's some really interesting potential matchups to get to that point. I think Creighton could cause some people some indigestion.
Yeah.
Oh, they're incredible offensively.
Yeah.
So there's no question. They got to the Elite Eight last year. They believe they're a team that can win it. And as you look analytically, if you want to go it that way, generally the national champion comes from the top 8 analytic teams in the country. I think it's been like 20 of the last 22 years or something like that. Creighton's in that group as a 3 seed. So if you're looking for a dark horse team who could cut the nets down, it's Creighton. I don't love the matchup against Tennessee, so I'm going to take them out there, but they're certainly capable.
Yep, absolutely. So
I see this bracket totally different than all of you guys.
Okay.
I have Creighton going out in the first round to Akron. And I have South Carolina. Lamont Paris is a really good coach, mid-major guy that moved up. And I feel like he's one of those coaches, along with Nate Oates and some of those other guys that kind of bubbled up and got their big job. I love Chris Jans at Mississippi State for this very reason. I think that South Carolina team, I have them going to the Elite Eight, and I have them playing against Gonzaga. I don't believe in Kansas. But Chip, like you said, that Sanford McNeese game could happen at 12-13 in the second round, because both those teams are more than capable of winning their first round games. And we all know that every year one of these regions just absolutely blows up. This could be the one for me.
All right, let's get to the Final Four. And I think everybody's looking at Purdue beating Tennessee potentially. Tennessee's got a chance, obviously. They've got high power. They've got good defense. But when you in the Final Four, I've got it, UConn and Arizona, Houston and Purdue in the semifinals. And with Arizona facing Purdue just on a whim, I think UConn's probably going to win it, but I've got Arizona and Purdue, and because of my buddy Andy Herzer, I've got Purdue coming back to do the reprise of the Virginia dance a few years ago and winning the whole thing. So kind of give me your thoughts on the Final Four. Steve, lead it off.
Yeah, Jim, I'm kind of with you. I picked that exact Final Four in my 90-second live on TV bracket the other day, and I couldn't palate the fact that I had 3 number 1 seeds in after I looked back on it. So that's where I went with Kentucky ultimately. But other than that, I have the same Final Four. And like I said, way back at the beginning of the year, I said, Arizona looks to me like a national title team. I'm going to stick with that if for no other reason than I think most people are going with UConn, and it's just so hard to repeat. I'm going to say Arizona gets hot. The Final Four is in Phoenix, which I think will play a factor for them. They should have a lot of people there on their side. So I'm going to say Arizona in the title game. And I'm like you, for whatever reason, in my 90 seconds the other night, I just looked at it and said, maybe this is redemption for Purdue. It's the same story of Virginia 5 years later, lose to a 16 one year, come back. They've got the most dominant player in Zach Edey. He doesn't even need a ladder to cut down the nets after they win it. So I'm going to go with the Boilermakers to win it all.
All right. Monty Tao, what do you got?
I've got 3 number 1s, Connecticut, North Carolina, Purdue, and then the wild card Wolfpack joins them. Connecticut beats North Carolina. Purdue beats NC State. I hate to say that. And then Connecticut beats Purdue, which I hate to say that too, but that's what's going to happen.
Yep, and I couldn't, if Purdue or if UConn wins the whole thing, I mean they're just really really strong right now and playing extremely well and just blew through the Big East. Timmy, what do you think about what's going to go on out in the desert?
Man, I should have prefaced my thoughts like Monty did at the beginning of the show. I'm terrible at this. I have not done well in these brackets in the last 10 years, that's for sure. But having said that, I feel like this is my year. I feel like Purdue and Tennessee. I feel like this is my year. But I actually have UConn and Arizona on the left side of the bracket. I have Houston coming out of the right. But surprisingly, I have Gonzaga. I don't think this is one of Mark Few's better teams. But I feel like for some reason, because of them being the chaser instead of the chasee like they have been for the past several years, I feel like they might surprise some people and get there. It was just a wild pick. I feel like that bottom, the Midwest region is going to be the one that blows up. I just picked one, and that was the one. And so I feel like Gonzaga is going to come out of it.
Well, I tell you, and who do you have winning the whole thing?
I actually have UConn still winning the whole thing.
Okay, well, hey, that works out perfect. I mean, we got two guys picked UConn, two of us picked Purdue to win it, so I think that's pretty good.
Chip, I've got another bracket too.
You always do.
I've got Purdue in this one.
I tell you, this is from having done a game in Moraga this year. It's I'd love to see St. Mary's make a run. Here's a little inside story. Marcellonis, their guard for St. Mary's, in 1988, saw his dad was on the the Soviet national team that toured the U.S. They played at Middle, and the only game they lost when they had Sabonis, Volkov, and Marcellonis all playing at the same time was in Murfreesboro. So it was really kind of cool. At the end of the handshake line, he came by where I was sitting there, and I told him, I said, "Hey, I saw your dad play in our gym in 1988." And he said, "Are you kidding me?" And so I'd love to see, and the big kid they have is really good. But so I'd love to see them make a run. On the women's side, Rick Insel has put together just a fabulous group of players and a team that has incredible chemistry. They head to Baton Rouge today. They'll play Louisville at 12:30 on Friday with the potential of facing LSU in the second round. And again, here's where the NCAA's pulled a few little tricks, because Haley Van Lith, formerly of Louisville, could potentially face, and she's now at LSU, she could either face her former team on Sunday, or she could face a team that beat her brains in a year ago in Murfreesboro. So I think, Coach Insel's team this year, and you guys have seen them, and Tim, you saw them last week. I think they've got a potential to make some noise this year, for sure.
Really good basketball team. I mean, really good. And they don't go very deep. They play primarily their starting five. When you look at their minutes, their bench players that come off the bench, only one averages double-digit minutes. Really not quite, 9.7 minutes in the Russian girl, number 55, Grabovskaya.
Yeah, Yulia.
However you say her last name.
Yulia Grabovskaya, yeah.
Grabovskaya, yes, and she's a really good player.
Yeah,
but they have the size to make noise in the tournament, and Rick is one of the better coaches I've ever seen. I mean, I really feel like that guy understands what it takes to win, and he does it every year in and year out. I like the way they move in between the plays. I mean, they seem like a military team where they're just so disciplined. Like I saw one play, a girl hit a three-point shot and got fouled, got knocked down. The whole team, all four other players came over, picked her up, and then the other four players sprinted to their spots. It's a dead ball. And, that epitomizes how disciplined that team is. They're going to be a really, really tough out in the NCAA tournament. I like their chances.
Yeah, I agree. I love this team. I've loved Middle Tennessee's basketball program on the women's side for a long time. And I know people down there, Chip, you know it. they're waiting for that NCAA tournament win because it's been back to 2007. I thought it might happen last year, but Colorado was just so physical inside. That was never really a game. I think they get a benefit that, as you mentioned, they've played this Louisville team before. Not this year, and I know it's different year to year, but I don't think they're going to be intimidated at all. I don't think they're going to have the same size disadvantage of that. It's a very balanced Louisville team that goes to the glass. But I like this matchup. I think there's a decent shot they can win that game. I'm not going to pick them to beat LSU, the defending national champs on their home floor, but I like the Blue Raiders in round one.
Monty, there are 5 teams from Tennessee this year on the women's side that made the tournament field, and you've been around Rick Insell, and you know what kind of guy he is and what kind of coach he is. This is a great opportunity for him.
Well, he's a winner, and his teams always find a way to win. He's had so many successful seasons, and he deserves to get a win. And go ahead and challenge LSU. The women's game is very exciting, and a lot of excitement coming from South Carolina, Iowa, and it'll be a great Final Four for them as well. And just hope that Rick's teams continue to work their way through the bracket.
Guys, this has been a fun hour, and I really appreciate all of you jumping in. Hope you've had half as much fun as I have, and let the games begin.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Chip.
Safe travel, Steve, and we'll talk to you soon. Timmy, thanks so much. Monty, I've got my La Loupe on here today, holding my glasses. So I'll be talking to you soon. All right.
Okay, thank you, buddy.
All right, Brian Barrett is coming up next right here on WGNS. Thank you all, and hope your brackets win your office pool. And if you missed any of this, you can go back and catch it on the podcast section of WGNSradio.com. Have a great day here in the Mid-State, and always keep it on the Big G, WGNS. Good afternoon, everybody.